Oh my gosh, why does anyone listen to me? Because I can't speak. Are we 12? I don't know, like I'm too dumb to describe what it's written like, but what I did not expect is to be absolutely sobbing through this book. I was kind of getting a bit nervous about my cold dead heart. Hello and welcome back to the chaos that is Shani and books. Today is going to be the first of, if all goes to plan, a series of 5 videos on my channel in which I attempt to discover new favorite books. So since the beginning of the year, I have been working away on this series of vlogs idea, and I'm almost to the end of it. When I'm filming this intro, I'm not totally done, so that's why I say if all goes to plan. But the idea is that this video is going to be reading books that have tropes, I'm gonna call it tropes, or something in it that was in one of my favorites. The next video is going to be reading from authors who had made my favorites. Third video is going to be the classic reading a booktuber's favorite books. The fourth video is going to be more of a silly goofy one. It is reading books with similar titles to my favorites. And then the final video to close off the series is going to be going over my findings and what I have learnt from the series, and then predicting new 5-star favorites. So like I said, I'm going to be looking at my previous favorites books in my favorites video of 2022 and 2021. So when looking at my favorites videos and looking for trends in trope, I noticed that this book has a single mum main character. This book also has a single mum as the main character. This one was my favorite of 2021. And there's a lot of mums in this, but there is one of the mums that is a single mum. This one isn't a single mum, but it is a girl who is caring for a neighbor when their mum is out of the picture, so it kind of fits in. And this also isn't a single mum, it is an uncle who is having to look after his nephew and niece, but it is a single caregiver. But when I thought of this, I mostly thought of these two because these were 2 recent favorites in the year just gone. So I looked at my shelves to see if I had any other books that had the single mum trope in it, and I saw Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. By the way, I'm filming this intro at the end, so I already know how this turns out. But this one is a female-female romance, and one of the women in the romance is a single mum. Okay, so looking at these 2 books, I also realized that they both have authors as main characters. So again, looking at my shelves to see if I could see anything with that in it. And I had The Roughest Draft, which is another romance, this one between 2 authors. Next up, looking for trends, one of my favorite books of 2021 was A Dowry of Blood, which I still don't have a physical copy of. And it is a book that is written by an author who was also a poet first, I think. And it has very lyrical, poetic writing. 2 of the books on my 2022 list, I noticed that negative reviews towards these books said they didn't like the writing style. I thought it was too much, like too trying to be flowery. I don't know how to explain it. Yes, baby? Okay, I'm distracted, I need to keep going. So looking at my shelves, I had On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, who is also a poet. Also, these 2 were both gifted to me from Sasha, so thank you, Sasha, for creating half of this TBR. Next up, like I said, my favorite book of 2021 was Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. And if you didn't know what this one is about, it is these group of mothers whose children are just starting kindergarten. Something happens at a school event and someone dies and we don't know who it is, and we're finding out what happened throughout the book. But a lot of this book is set in and around the school setting. And if you didn't know that before I took time off work to have a child, I was actually a school teacher, so I definitely related to a lot of the goings on that was present around the school setting.
Bye.
One of the characters in this book was also a school teacher, though it was talked about quite briefly. This book that was also on my favorites does have a focus on teaching. The young girl ages out of the foster care system and gets a job teaching on this farm. I also had They Never Learn by Lane Fargo on my favorites list, and it is about a college professor, which I'm still counting that as a teacher, who is a murderer. So a bit of a different spin on the teacher there. And then this one might be a bit of a stretch, although not really. There is a focus on learning in this book, and she does find someone to help teach her. but this was one of my favorite books of 2021, and it is about a young girl in Nigeria who is pulled out of school by her father so that she can be sold to become a bride to an older man. And the focus of this book is that she really wants to learn so that she is able to get a job and provide for herself so she doesn't have to end up in these bad situations. So because I had so many books that featured teaching or a teacher or the school setting, I thought that I would look to see if this was a specific trope that I enjoyed or if these were one-offs. I originally googled something like books that featured teachers or something, and one of the books that came up on a list I actually had, but it wasn't entirely what I was looking for this particular trope. So I ended up choosing 2 books for this one. The first one that came up on that list that I was talking about is Wonder, which this one is a middle grade book, and one could argue that a lot of middle grade and young adult books fall into this category because a lot of them are set in schools because the main character still attends schools, but I wasn't really looking for a character attending a school. I was more looking for the teachers or the school setting due to the parents, which is what was happening in all of the other books that I referenced that had this thing in it. But because I already had this one on my shelf, and the reason I had it is because I had seen some teachers that were using this book in their classroom as the novel they were starting for a unit. I had originally seen this at a used bookstore and picked it up for that reason. However, I'd taken time off teaching and this just never got prioritized for me. So I figured since it came up in a website when I was researching for something for this trope, I figured it fit because I wanted it for the teaching job anyway. So that's that one. And then I looked at my shelves for anything else that I thought fit this trope, and I came across this one, which was more what I was going for. This one is True Biz, which is a book about a deaf school, a school for deaf students. And so we're following more about the school. And yes, we're kind of following some of the students that attend the school, but it's also the teachers and the parents and everyone kind of involved in the community around this school. So this more fit trope or the thing in the books that I was looking for this video, but I'm reading both for it anyway. So that is the 5 books that I will be reading for this video, which is reading books with my favorite tropes or my favorite things in them. Like I said, this is going to be a series on my channel for the rest of the month. So I'm going to be reading 5 books in this video, 5 in the next one. I'm going to be reading 15 for the booktubers favorites, and then 5 for the last one, and then my wrap up. So be looking forward to those videos as well. And yeah, let's get into the vlog. So I have completed the first book for this vlog. I feel like these rainbows are off-putting. This was actually my first read of the year this year. I do still like the style of writing, and I think I want to pick up the poetry from this author because there was one chapter that was written in like, I don't know, like I'm too dumb to describe what it's written like, but I really enjoyed that chapter, so I feel like I would like this author's poetry, but I'm not a poetry girl, so I don't know. By the way, this was a gift from Sasha, so thank you, Sash. This is essentially written as letters from a son to his mother, and his mother can't read, or she can't read English, and yeah, basically tells his family's history from being in Vietnam to just this main character's life, I guess. And I did really enjoy it, but I think maybe, I don't know, just not as much as the other books that I'm using it in reference to. I still prefer A Diary of Blood, and I definitely will continue to pick up more books that are written this way, like in letters to someone, because I feel like that's a really cool concept. And I did enjoy the book. It was really like inspiring, I feel like, to me. And the author's writing is very pretty, but yeah, I definitely want to pick up their poetry as well to see if I enjoy that as well. I don't think it was going to be a big surprise to anyone, including myself, that I absolutely loved this. This was such a sweet middle grade. I feel like everyone has read it already, but I'm definitely glad that I have finally read this one. I do need to watch the movie now, but if you don't know what this is about, it's obviously very popular. It's been adapted. This is about this boy who was born with a genetic disorder, and I wish I took notes on exactly what it was, but part of it was that he didn't have a cleft palate, and as a result of this rare genetic disorder, it meant that he needed to have a bunch of different operations. He couldn't eat when he was younger, he had to have a feeding tube. And as a result of all of these operations that had been done to try and help correct things that were a result of the genetic disorder, it means that he doesn't look like a typical boy. So he doesn't have like normal ears, his eyes aren't in the same spot that people's normally are. He obviously has lots of scars from the different surgeries. He can't eat properly, like his jaw isn't correct. So he looks a little different. So it is about, okay, it's the next day because I got interrupted. But what I was trying to say, I think, is that this is about acceptance and bullying and understanding of people who might not be like what you are or what you're used to. And given that this is middle grade, I think it obviously has a very good message. What I did not expect is to be absolutely sobbing through this book. It honestly does deal with some darker themes. So definitely for middle graders who are able to read and consume that. We also follow from a bunch of different characters. There were multiple POVs, I don't know how many, there was lots. So obviously we got chapters from the main character August, and he had been homeschooled his whole life, obviously because he had a lot of health issues, and he's about to attend his very first real school. So we're getting the chapters from his perspective and how he feels about being different from everyone and being stared at. We're also getting some chapters from his sister, which I really appreciated that too, because it talked about how it is to be someone who has a sibling with a lot of health issues and how she kind of feels like she is ignored, and she's not complaining about it because she's kind of saying like, this is how it has to be, because I know August needs to have all the attention. Yeah. Hi. Whoa. Whoa. There were chapters from some of his school friends as well, which also talked about how it felt to be, I guess, socio-economically different from your friends. So I think the school that he's attending is quite expensive, and there was one of his friends that was talking about how a lot of the other kids were going on these fancy holidays over the break and he wasn't because his family can't afford it. And yeah, I just think it dealt with a lot. And in such a short book, we got just these glimpses of how it is to accept people who are just dealing with a range of different things at young ages. And I just thought this was really beautiful. It was pretty obvious that I was going to like this. I mean, this was a pretty safe bet for me as for baby, for something that I was going to enjoy. So I'm glad I finally got to this. Okay, looking like a mess and my hair is falling out of the bun, but I need to update on the book that I'm currently reading. My neighbor is choosing now to whippersnipper the lawn, but anyway, I am really glad that I'm enjoying this because I was kind of getting a bit nervous about my Cold Dead Heart because I wasn't enjoying the last two books that I've read for different vlogs because I wasn't feeling the romance, but I'm enjoying this, so I'm glad. I should have known because this is very popular, everyone loves it, but this is about these two main characters. It's a sapphic romance. The main character, Delilah, is a photographer and she is asked to be the photographer at her stepsister's wedding. So she goes back to this small town that she grew up in that she hasn't been back to for ages, and the romance is with the other character, Claire, who is a single mum and she's still living in this small town. She is best friends with the stepsister and she's the maid of honor at the wedding. And yes, it's just really cute, and I have been tabbing as well because there have been a lot of relatable or just like, I don't know, moments that I want to tab because of the relatability of it or just things that I want to remember. And then I've also been tabbing in the dark purple, the moments where I just think it's so cute. The first tab that I put in was because the character, they were describing the gleam in a certain character's eyes by saying the same kind she got whenever she was working on a planner design or bought a brand new set of Tombow markers. And as someone who loves to journal, I can relate. There is also a lot of really relatable lines about being a single parent. There was one section where the single mum's like baby daddy was like bragging about the fact that he remembered to turn the oven off because he forgot to turn the oven off one of the times he was watching the daughter. The book said, did he want a medal for performing basic parenting duties and pressing a button on a stove? Which is very true, because a lot of times on social media as well, men are just praised and like, oh, you're such a good dad just for doing like basic things. That's just like, that's not being a good dad, that's just being a dad. And there was just so many cute scenes between the two women. There was also there's only one bed trope happening because they're on this like little weekend trip for the bride where they're getting massages and stuff, so they're staying in a hotel. Okay, I'm getting distracted by someone wanting me, so I'm like halfway through, even though I lost my place just now, but I'll let you know when I'm done. Hi, I have been playing my Switch so much that I have forgotten to do any updates. I have been reading, slightly less, but I have been reading, and I didn't feel an update when I finished Delilah Green Doesn't Care, which I think I'm gonna give this 5 stars. When I first finished it, I thought maybe it's not quite a 5, but you know what? It was a really fun time, and I think I'm gonna give it 5. And I think I need to read more sapphic romances now because this was really great. Hi, baby. I'm coming out in a second. No. And the whole point of this video has proven to have worked, because the reason that I picked this was because it had the single mum trope, and I loved that part of this book. I had, I think I said this already, some of the tabs. Yes, baby. That's yours. You can draw in that book. Okay. That's your journal. The light purple tabs were for relatable quotes, and a lot of that was to do with being a single mum. Okay. Don't touch it, please. Okay. That's okay. And then the dark purple were times when I was reading that I was just like thinking that something was so cute, either the romance or a friendship, and I just really loved this. I can't remember if I told you what it was about. I'm super glad that this is a series. Yeah. There is the second book that's already out, and then the third one I think is about to come out soon. Actually, I think it comes out at the end of the year, but I'm pretty sure the cover gets revealed like this month. So I'm definitely going to continue on with the series, and I'm really glad that I read this. The book was a success, but also what was a success was the fact that I chose it for this video for the trope, and I ended up liking it. But you know, I'm not a romance girly, but you know, giving a romance 5 stars. Who is she? Let's talk about this book. Okay, so the reason that it is the reason that it is in this vlog is because the main characters are authors. This book is about these 2 main characters who wrote a book together, which was a bestseller, and then they haven't spoken in years, and now they have to write another book together. And it is a romance book, so I'm sure you can imagine what's going to happen to the 2 main characters. This romance is not good. We should not be swooning over these 2 main characters together. I do not ship them. I don't know what terminology you're supposed to use with romance books. I feel like I'm an old lady being like, I don't ship them. But I did not enjoy this whatsoever. I feel like the male main character was ridiculously childish. Both the main characters were childish. Like, instead of talking to each other, they were literally writing letters and sliding it under each other's door. Like, are we 12? And what really concerns me is that the people who wrote this book are actually a husband and wife. Married couple. Duh, that's what a husband and wife are. And it says in the back of the book that they continue to take daily inspiration from their own love story, which concerns me about their own marriage, because this was not good. It was just, everyone was cheating on each other, It was just, yeah, full of emotional cheating. The characters were like, this is an adult book. Like, one of the characters has been married already once before. The other character is engaged, like at the start of this book. So they're not teenagers. They are adults who are capable of being in long-term, I'm sorry, Keen's making noise, long-term relationships, and they just felt like really silly and childish. And the fact that they would just cheat on their significant others, like, are we really swooning over a romance where both characters would cheat on their significant other and we're like, yes, like, we want them to get together? Like, no, I don't care if they're together or not, because I don't like it. There was one character in this that I did enjoy, which was the best friend. I've forgotten her name, but she was pretty fun. And other than that, that's that. This is a really floppy copy though, so that's cool. But what I will say is the point of this is reading books with tropes or themes that I enjoy. And the thing that I was reading this for was for the authors, the characters being authors. What am I saying? Which that part, I think, makes it worthwhile that I read it, because I do think that I can now confirm that I do enjoy that in a book. I will continue to pick up books that feature authors, because it was actually interesting to hear about, I guess, like the writing and the publishing process. And not that it was in there that much. I mean, it kind of was, yeah. Yeah. So that's that on that, and moving on. Okay, I'm reading the last book for this vlog, which is True Biz. I'm about 100 pages in and I'm really enjoying this. I have started tabbing it. I did not know this was going to have a gay couple in it. There is a female-female relationship in the book. Basically, so far, we are following some people who are involved with this school for the deaf. So we're following the headmistress, and that is who the gay couple is. She is married. Are they married? I assume they're married. I can't even remember now. Has there been a wedding mentioned? I don't know. She's in a relationship with a woman. And the headmistress is a hearing person, but she was raised by two deaf parents. So she obviously has been around the deaf community and knows sign language and stuff. And she's the headmaster of this school, which is like a boarding school. So the kids sleep there as well. And it's obviously for deaf students. And we're also following the perspective of two of the students. One girl who is new there, and she had like an implant, so because I guess her parents didn't want her to learn sign language, but now she's transitioning to learning to sign and stuff, so she's kind of behind because she hasn't really learnt any languages like fully, because she started to learn English with the use of her implant, but now she's also trying to learn sign language, so she's kind of behind her peers because she hasn't been immersed in one language in full. And then we're following another student who is a boy, and his family is kind of well known because they've had however many generations of deaf people in their family. And I guess they've also been involved in the school since then. So we heard about like his backstory of like all the generations of deaf people in his family. And there've been some really great discussions about being deaf and people's perceptions of that. And honestly, that's one of the tabs that I've got going, is stuff that I've learned or just I guess haven't really thought about, because I am not deaf and I don't think I know anyone who is. So I wouldn't have heard of some of these things before. For example, one of the girls, she was awoken by her alarm, which instead of obviously alarm clocks, they can't have because they won't hear it, but her bed was shaking, like it was her bed shaker. An older model than the one she had at home, with a more aggressive vibration pattern that scared her awake. There was also a discussion about deaf people who are a bit scared of hospitals, and because there was a pregnant person and they were saying they knew someone who was wheeled into the operation room and they weren't told that they were about to have a cesarean, and someone else who died for a blood clot after the nursing staff ignored their complaints of pain that they've written on a napkin. And then when the girl gets to the school and she meets her roommate and they're like just doing their own thing in their room, the roommate flicks the light switch on and off to get her attention. Obviously she can't call out to her. Yes, puppy. Just things that I hadn't really thought about. There's also sections talking about how in some families sign language is withheld intentionally to try and motivate speech. So lots of discussions about, yeah, just people being ignorant to people with disabilities. And obviously the point I added this into my TBR is because of its use of schools and teachers. And I have another tab for references that I relate to in regards to being a teacher. I have other thoughts, but I can't talk about them right now because I'm about to be interrupted by my child again. But yeah, I am enjoying this. And also, yes, I have Christmas pajamas on and it's February. Well, what a surprise at the end here. I don't know that I have heard anyone talking about this or reviewing it. Or if I have, I don't recall what they said about it or anything. But I really enjoyed this. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got a lot of tabs going on. I was marking down things that I related to in reference to the teaching career, which was of course why this book was on my TBR to begin with. I was also marking down different things that I was learning about being deaf. I had like 2 different colored tabs for that. And I was also marking down the things to do with writing. This does have, similar to in Sally Rooney's Normal People, how there aren't quotation marks around dialogue between characters. But obviously this was written in an interesting way because lots of characters were deaf. So they were signing to each other. So if a character was signing to each other, they were like in italics. Hang on, should I try and find you something to... Here we go. So like in italics, like this is one character and then this is one character and then this is like, they're going back and forth like this. I just gave you a really bad example. Anyway, it was like like the conversation went like this and italics were representing they were signing to each other. And then yeah, it was when characters were speaking out loud to each other, it was written like in Normal People where there aren't any quotation marks. Yes, I felt like I liked that, right? Like I didn't mind it in Normal People either, but I liked it in this because obviously things needed to be written differently because communication was happening in a different way, which was very interesting. And then in between some of the chapters, there's also like facts. So I was marking down these facts as well, if I found them like super interesting or I wanted to go back to them. So like there is facts about things. So this particular one is a certain case study. Oh, right. This was about a deaf carpenter and his wife who moved to this island, and then it ended up being they had really high amounts of deafness on the island. Anyway, so it gave a lot of information about that I did not know. But then at the end of these fact chapters, there's this little thing that says like ask yourself, and it like has a little thing to think about. So this one says, in a community where everyone knows sign language and things like employment discrimination aren't a problem, is deafness a disability? Why or why not? Because on this island there were so many deaf people that everyone, whether deaf or not, knew sign language, and they were just really used to obviously people not being able to hear because there was just so many people that were deaf. So that little, they had ended on that little thing to think about that goes with the fact that they were telling you. Oh my gosh, why does anyone listen to me? Because I can't speak. But yeah, this, I really loved it and it really made me think. And while I love just reading like silly goofy books that are just for fun, it's also really great to expand my knowledge about a subject and expand the way I think about the world and learning about something new. That's why I love reading about characters from around the world and about characters who experience a different life to me. The funny thing about this, there is also like sections that show you sign language. And there was one section that was talking about how like American sign language is different to British sign language, and like all the countries have their own like language. What's funny is it's like, I think it's a pretty common thing that people teach babies signing before they can speak because it helps them to be able to communicate certain things, obviously before they are able to speak. And Keen and I had been to a speech therapy appointment and she had suggested to try doing this with him. So I was like, oh yeah. And she gave me some signs and when I left the appointment I had forgotten them, and one of the days when I was going to introduce using them I had forgotten what it was, and I'm like, oh, what was it again? So I thought, oh, I'll just Googled it, and I didn't think to write like Australian sign language, and it came up with the American one, and I didn't think, and I taught it to Kian, and then later the next time I wanted to remember a sign I typed it in and realized what I'd done wrong the first time. So some of the signs he started learning are ASL, so American Sign Language, and some of them are Australian because I forgot when I Googled it and I went from the wrong graphic. So if Kian ever speaks to a deaf person in Australia, they might be confused because he has a mixture of signs, but it was like one sign that was the wrong one. So yeah, when it was talking about it in the book, I was like, yeah, I know they're different, and I just forgot. But yeah, this was a nice success to end this vlog, so I'm really happy about that one. I don't remember if there's anything else I want to say about this, but yeah, it goes to show sometimes just the random books that I don't really hear people talking about are worthwhile picking up. So there we have the first vlog for this series. Like I said, be on the lookout for the upcoming vlogs and videos coming out within the next couple of weeks. What did I learn from this video, if anything? That I do like these tropes, or maybe I'm just been lucky so far. I definitely think I will pick up more with the single mum trope, as well as books that have some sort of school setting, because I mean it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that when you're reading books that has an experience that you relate to, you're going to probably enjoy your reading experience a little more. But yeah, this vlog is long enough already, so thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts are on them, and I'll be back with the next vlog in a few days to a week's time. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next one.